January 6, 2021. A day as bad as any in American history, according to official Washington. As bad as Pearl Harbor, as bad as 9/11, worse than the Civil War, an insurrection against the United States of America, against its government, at the very heart of the nation, its capital. What really did happen on January the 6th? Well, it's been 2 years and 2 months to the day, and to be perfectly honest, we still don't know what happened, if you get right down to it. Oh, it's not for the lack of information, mind you. We've been we've been talking about it, been theorizing on it, speculating on it, offering up ideas. Now, official Washington will tell you that it was an insurrection of the worst possible order when the nation's elite, our governing class, were attacked by the plebes, by the mob. A violent mob descended upon the Capitol that day. Yeah, okay, maybe. Oh, now don't get me wrong. There were individuals there that engaged in violent actions. There were windows broken. There was glass shattered. There was property that was damaged in one form or another. But as far as really understanding the total of what happened, we don't know. Because, funny thing, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who was then Nancy Pelosi, and the January 6th committee had over 14,000 hours of videotape, yet for some strange reason would never release it to the public. So here we are, trying to determine what happened, not really knowing, not much changing. Lots of heat, almost no light. Until now. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to the electronic front porch and let's talk. For the past 2 years, everybody's been speculating about what really happened. We've seen video images that the media has put out about the events that happened at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021. They show a particularly dangerous and violent moment in American history. Lots of confusion, lots of yelling, windows being broken down, doors being torn at, people trying to get into the Capitol building, tear gas being put into the crowd. But do we have the full context? And that's the question that people have been asking for years, because for the hundreds of thousands of people who were there, I've heard estimates of upwards of 1 to 2 million people in Washington, D.C. on January the 6th. A lot of people have made the argument, was this really as bad as a lot of official Washington is trying to make it out to be? And for years, people have been pressing for the Speaker's office to release all of the video footage, to no avail. Pelosi would never do it. The January 6th committee had access to all the video. They would never release it. Oh, they would show you the parts of it they wanted you to see, but that sort of begs the question. Were you seeing everything? And how would you know? No one had access to it except the Office of the Speaker, the Capitol Police, and the J-6 committee. Enter a new Republican majority. Enter freshly minted Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Take a look at this. I say that things changed, and they changed in a big way. This is an article from the Washington Times, printed January 12th of this year, where headline, Kevin McCarthy prepared to release all Capitol footage of the J6 protest. A little further down the article, written by Carrie Picker, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said Thursday he's willing to release to the public unrelated security footage from the January 6th, 2021 Capitol riot where pro-Trump protesters breached the complex to protest the presidential election. Quote, I want to be very thoughtful about it, but yes, Mr. McCarthy said at his weekly presser. So yes, there was finally a change. Now, to his credit, McCarthy had talked about this prior to the November election, that this is something that he wanted to do. He believed that he wanted to let people see what really happened, let them make up their own mind. And on that score, I applaud him. However, I have one criticism of what he's done, and that's this. As opposed to making these tapes available to everyone, journalists on the right, journalists on the left, independent bloggers, I can't believe I'm using that term. God, I'm so old. Independent, social media content creators. Everybody and anybody ought to have access to this. Instead, he only let it go to one party. That I don't like. But as far as the overall sentiment, yes, it's something that he ought to do. Now, people will always rather cynically ask the question, was he doing this out of pureness of heart, or was he doing it by political motivation? Okay, I can make you argue a little bit of both. But he did promise to release it. Fast forward a couple of months. Yeah, there have been some delays in getting it out there, mostly because of security concerns. But in the end, he released it, and he released it to one person. And it's the one person in all of Washington, outside of Donald Trump or the late Rush Limbaugh, who could absolutely send everybody up in flames. He gave it to Tucker Carlson. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, turned over all of the videotape for January 6th to Tucker Carlson, the one man in Washington, D.C. that can make everybody mad all at once. Contrary to the opinion of Adam Schiff, who's already calling him a conspiracy theorist and a Putin stooge and just about every other name you can possibly imagine, Tucker Carlson is an honest broker. He'll call out the left and the right. He has no problem skewering official Washington, D.C. anytime he thinks they deserve to be poked. And believe me, he has a rapier wit and a rapier poker. Now, I do want to show you something from Fox News' own website, and this is Tucker Carlson's opening monologue to when he introduced the footage that he's had access to from the January 6 tapes. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, your bosses at Fox are probably telling you what to do. You're probably having your strings pulled. We're still not going to see the whole thing. Take a listen to this.
Before we show you the tape, a few words on the process. Our producers had unfettered access to the Capitol surveillance video. Neither the Speaker's office nor our bosses at Fox News interfered in any way with our investigation. Of the 40,000 or so hours of tape, most of it turned out to be irrelevant. Static shots of empty rooms, in some cases far from the Capitol itself. To find relevant videotape, our producers were given use of Capitol computers with advanced mapping software. That made it easy to find what we were looking for.
Now, there's one more part to this that I want to play, and I think it's very relevant, because one of the criticisms that people have had, official Washington that is, in the past few days, oh, he's not taking security seriously. We're putting ourselves at risk because of this man. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's been said. We don't know what he's going to do with it. He's going to shotgun the whole thing. Oh, yeah? Listen to this.
Seriously. But we do take security seriously. So before airing any of this video, we checked first with the Capitol Police. We're happy to say the reservations were minor, and for the most part, they were reasonable. In the end, the only change that we made was in blurring the details of a single interior door in the Capitol building. You're unlikely even to notice it when we show you, and we are confident it does not affect our reporting.
Now, I don't know about anybody else, but it sounds to me like Tucker Carlson and his people were trying to be very responsible with this. They were trying to do their best to make sure that they accommodated the Capitol Police and they were living under the restrictions that they were given, which from the sound of it weren't very much. So, having had access to it, having been able to look at it, having he and his producers go through it, what things did we find out? Well, some big ones from the start. Number one, these people weren't armed. I heard one reporter in Washington, I think it was Charlie Hurt, he was having a discussion with one of his colleagues, and the colleague, who's a little more on the left, said, oh, these people were armed. And Charlie's like, armed with what? Well, they were carrying flagpoles. American flags, flagstaffs. That's what they were armed with. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're engaging in a insurrection, it would seem to me that you'd want something a little more powerful if you're going to try to topple the government of the United States, an act worse than anything experienced in America since the War of 1812, according to official Washington. What other things did we find out? Well, try this on for size. A lot of people, either in groups or individually, and I say individually referencing Jacob Chansley, a.k.a. the QAnon shaman, were being escorted around the Capitol by police. For the most part, there were people there that were being very respectful of the building, and you'll see that in Tucker Carlson's videos that he put out. They weren't there to tear the place up. Now, don't get me wrong. There were individuals on January 6th, they did destroy property. They engaged in vandalism. But by and large, the people that were walking around the Capitol weren't there to cause violence. And the tapes that Tucker Carlson and his folks showed on Fox News proved that. You want to destroy a narrative? Just let this out. Let people see this for themselves, and they'll come to the conclusion that most reasonable people would. Yeah, there was a lot of confusion on that day. Yeah, there were a lot of people who were hyped up, angry. But the overwhelming majority of the people in Washington, D.C., the overwhelming majority of the people walking around the Capitol were trying to be as respectful as they could. They just wanted to see the inside of the Capitol. As a matter of fact, going back to the QAnon shaman, there's a video that you'll see where when he's in the Senate chamber, he actually stops to pray and thank God for the Capitol Police who are there, which, by the way, they're in the chamber with him listening to the prayer. And that goes to another question. If guys like the QAnon shaman were as dangerous as they were, why are we watching videotape where 2 or 3 or 4 Capitol Police officers are literally leading him around, showing him the sights? Why didn't they arrest him? Why didn't they take him down? Why doesn't the video footage show us that? Because it's altogether possible that what we've been told for the past 2 years is a lie, and a damned lie at that. What other things did we see? Well, there's some interesting footage as it relates to Ray Epps. Now, there's a name you've probably heard floated around for a while. Now, you can say yay or nay about him, good or bad, but there's one very curious thing. In a piece of that video footage, he's shown saying, "We need to go into the Capitol tomorrow." This was on January 5th. Yet, he's never been prosecuted for anything that happened. As a matter of fact, official Washington and the Justice Department has treated him with kid gloves. Why is that? Now, I'm not saying yay or nay about him myself, one way or the other. I've got some opinions. For the moment, I'll keep them to myself. But that's another thing I'd like to have answered. And there's one more piece of information that Tucker Carlson got into with the videos that he released. You might remember the name Brian Sicknick, who was a Capitol Police officer who died. Official Washington will tell you that he died from injuries received on that day where a fire extinguisher was smashed into his skull. Funny thing about that is, Tucker Carlson showed video where Brian Sicknick was walking around the Capitol, quite healthy, uninjured. But you won't hear Washington tell you that. See, there's a lot of things in that video that Tucker Carlson put out that definitely goes to the heart of the narrative that official Washington has put out for years. The violent insurrection. These people were a mob. Well, if this is a mob, it's got to be the damnedest mob I've ever seen. And I think you would agree with me once you start watching the video. So what's been the reaction of official Washington? Well, it sort of depends on who you talk to. In the press corps, as you might expect, this thing sort of falls along ideological lines. But there is one person that I'll point to in reaction to what Tucker Carlson's done, because I think she brings up a lot of good points. There is an article, let me share it here real quick, from the amazingly talented Miranda Devine of the New York Post. I won't read everything in the article, but the one thing that I do want to bring out that she did, remember how we mentioned the QAnon shaman? Well, here are some pictures from the video that you're going to see if you watch Tucker Carlson's show. Here's the QAnon shaman. Here's 2 officers flanked on either side of him. They're walking around the Capitol with him. Again, another picture. The door that was blurred out that Tucker Carlson mentioned in his opening monologue. Again, you don't see it, but you do see 2 security officers. And it's pictures like this, images like this. Now, some people will say, well, why didn't they just take him down? Yeah, that's just it. If he's so dangerous, how come they're not immediately putting him in handcuffs. Why don't we see pictures or video of that? Could it very well be that, okay, eccentric, okay, he's in a costume, dangerous? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe the video is showing us something that official Washington doesn't really want us to stop and consider. There is that. Now, that's the press corps in Washington, D.C. So what are the politicians saying? Oh, God, this is rich. Take a look at this. This is from CNBC, and in a rare display of bipartisanship. Check it out. Oh, this is good. Lawmakers, Capitol Police Chief, keep that last one in mind, blast Fox News Tucker Carlson over January 6th footage. It's not often that you can get Democrats and Republicans to agree on much of anything, but when it comes to official Washington being skewered or their narrative being played with, oh, believe me, everybody gets upset. The Senate's Democrat and Republican leaders, along with other lawmakers in the White House on Tuesday, criticized Fox News and its host Tucker Carlson for airing footage of the deadly January 6th insurrection in a way that is portrayed as a peaceful visit. That's what the tape makes it look like. Oh, listen to this from old Chuck Schumer, the majority leader of the Senate. Last night, millions of Americans tuned in to one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen on cable television. Apparently, Chuck has never gone back and watched himself give a speech on the floor of the Senate. But I digress. With disregard of the risk and knowing full well he was lying. How do we know he was lying? But again, lying to his audience, Fox News host Tucker Carlson ran a lengthy segment last night arguing that the January 6th Capitol attack was not a violent insurrection. Yeah, okay, you kind of expect that coming from a Democrat. Now, here's the kicker to it. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell told reporters, quote, "It was a mistake, in my view, for Fox News to depict this in a way that's completely at variance with what our chief law enforcement official here at the Capitol thinks." What he's referring to is McConnell was holding up a letter from Thomas Manger, the U.S. Capitol Police Chief. Manger had written that Carlson's commentary on the, quote, cherry-picked videos fails to provide context about the chaos and violence that happened before or during these less tense moments. Other lawmakers said a lot of things similar. Oh, yeah, you gotta love official Washington, D.C. You gotta love watching these guys when their narrative goes pop like a balloon. It gets blown up, and that's exactly what Tucker Carlson has done. But here's the question that I have for official Washington, the politicians in particular. Why are you so afraid of letting the American people and the world see all of the video footage? Look, if this is truly what you claim it is, let everybody see every bit of this video footage. Let them make up their own mind. If this is the truth, if what you're saying is the truth, if this was a violent insurrection, then let people see it for themselves. Let them come to that conclusion on their own. The evidence should be in your favor. I've got a further question for the press in Washington, D.C. What the hell is the matter with you guys? It took 2 years and 2 months for somebody to finally get their hands on complete, full, and unfettered access to all this stuff. I thought there was a time when the press in America wanted to know the truth, when they would pursue it to any length. Where are the Woodwards? Where are the Bernsteins? Of this generation that should be out there trying to crack one of the biggest stories in American political history. How come you guys aren't out there asking for this? Where's the sunlight? Where's the transparency? You're the fourth estate. You should have been on this like white on rice when all this broke loose. Yet you're sitting over in a corner, quiet as a mouse, not saying a word, except to repeat what your friends in politics tell you. Yeah, I'm getting a little worked up over this. I've been getting worked up over this for 2 years. I've had my suspicions about what was going on, but now I'm getting to see some actual video footage. Not video footage that people want me to see. I'm getting to see the alternative. And it sort of helps me come to some conclusions about what I think about January 6th. And that's the way it should be. Everybody. Doesn't matter if you're on the left, if you're on the right, if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican. It doesn't matter. We're the American people. We're a fairly strong people if you get right down to it. We've proven that over 2 centuries. Let us have all of the information. Let us make up our own minds. If we're going to heal the body politic, we've got to have all the information so we can have an honest discussion among ourselves about what it is that's really going on and what we want to see for the future going forward. But we can't do that if our political leaders are holding back information that not only we need to know, but we ought to know. I stand up and salute Tucker Carlson. I'll salute Kevin McCarthy. Like I said, I don't like the fact of how this was done, but at least it's starting to get out there. I believe it was a Supreme Court justice at the early part of the 20th century who made the statement that sunlight is the best disinfectant. If we're going to begin to bind up the wounds of the nation, we've got to have all the information. But what do you think? As I start to wrap this up, I ask some favors of you. Favors that I usually ask, but I hope that you'll do them for me. If you are not a subscriber to this channel, please do so. We're a going little concern. We'd like to be a going big concern, and your subscription to the channel will help us do that. Number 2, if you like this video, if you like the content, if you like my style, I've got style. Well, apparently some people think I do. And if you like the style of this, please share this video around to as many of your friends as you can. Everybody is always looking for alternative information, news sources, and commentary. Maybe this sort of thing is what they're after. Share it with your friends. And number 3, please hit the like button. Like I say, you'll never know how much hitting that little thumbs up will help a YouTube commentator like me. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm your Front Porch Conservative, and I'll see you next time.